want to, as staff mentioned a few moments ago, try to show some leadership in some environmental stewardship and sustainability. So I'm just wondering, for $15,000, it might be a good idea to have that charging station available sooner than later for the public.
Councillor
Thank
Columbus?
I take it this is one charging station, and we'd have it open to the public to charge their vehicle. Is there going to be a fee to go along with this, or is it going to be a freebie for certain individuals that have electric vehicles? Because I don't agree with that.
Through Mayor Chop, Marlene Watson informs me too, there may be grant opportunities as well. But yes, the intent is it would be for public use. I'm not sure how that works when you go to Toronto or a train station or a rest stop along the 400 series highway. You just plug in. I don't think, there may be a card swipe or there may be some sort of compensation, pay to play, but we'll be looking into that for sure. We don't want someone to park their car there 24/7 and, gas up or charge up for free.
Councillor Huffman and then Councillor Rabbits.
Sorry, I just want to, thank you, Mayor Chop. I just want to add to the point. I certainly agree in terms of, our carbon footprint and being, responsible in terms of moving forward with environmentally friendly options. At this point in time, I think one charging station at a cost of $15,000 that is available in the geographically vast area of Norfolk County is not a great solution at this point in time. I would think that maybe the price would be lower if we were doing bulk buying, and that at this point in time that it wouldn't be something that we would move forward with.
Councillor Rabbits?
Thank you, Mayor Chop, and through the chair to our councillors, and I want to comment on Mr. Michelle's point and also Councillor Huffman. Well received. I don't think we need a modification to the motion that's on the floor for what are other municipalities doing with their charging stations. I think the vehicle itself, the charging station, they're relative to each other, and it would be, I think, in order to have that information come along with that report that we would have in the future. What are other municipalities doing, with their electric charging stations in relation to their electric vehicles? I think that as time progresses, costs will likely decrease as technology improves. And once we get that information back, we can make an informed decision regarding charging stations at that point in time, or potentially put that forward for a future capital project. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay. On the motion, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Martin.
If I may interrupt and just ask if it would be appropriate, I'm not sure what time council plans to stay tonight. The reason why I ask is because in an effort to keep the budget process rolling, I've been asking my questions, but keeping a running tally of items that I would like to pull and have motions on. And if it would be suitable to go back and discuss some of these now before we continue on, or if it would be council's preference to continue with just asking questions about the line items.
I believe the plan was to put the motions forward as the line items came. So, but there would be nothing barring you from doing that.
My apologies. I was just thinking it was best to move forward. I guess I'll leave that.
Let's come back to that. Councillor Taylor?
I do have a few things left on this page that I'd like to address.
Okay.
So if we can finish and then we'll go back. May I address
Absolutely.
those now? Thank you. Through the chair to Public Works, with the column hoists being a new capital initiative, what are our mechanics using? I assume these are for the mechanics. What are they using right now?
Through the mayor, we have a combination of lifts and column hoists. The old days of a pit, they're no longer permitted. So column hoists are basically independent hoists that can be positioned around large vehicles, fire apparatus, tandems, and they all work together to basically lift the unit up so the undercarriage and so on can be worked on. So we have at times, we have mechanics and we have hoist, but there's an opportunity here to be more efficient. There are times where we have vehicles waiting for hoists for work to get done and mechanics that aren't able to do that without a creeper or the type of work they're doing. So it's just to, make the mechanic operation much more efficient.
And is $100,000 an appropriate amount to acquire enough hoists to lift an entire vehicle, or is this getting a few now, getting a few later?
No, this is for one that would do like the large apparatus, something like the fire aerial, a tandem truck, or vacuum truck, some of the large stuff.
In terms of costing options here, $100,000 for one of these, is that a bare minimum weight that we require for the apparatus, or will it be able to lift every vehicle we have in our fleet?
Through the mayor, they're designed to, you don't want to have two sets, one for small, one for large. If you can have one set that can do everything in your fleet, obviously you don't always have to lift the aerial truck up, but this is what has been proposed based on the pricing that we have.
Thank you.
Okay, no further questions on that page?
Not for Public Works, but I do have one for Mr. Slichenkov. With the Human Resource Information System, this being one system to handle everything you had mentioned, the 20-some items, was anything priced out to be able to handle half of the load at a smaller cost, and then introduce another system that would operate the other half, and then you'd only have two systems communicating instead of the 20, but at a significantly reduced rate?
So the thought, through you, Ms. Mayor, sorry. The request for information, when we kicked it out, didn't limit, as far as costing from companies, to you must provide the 20. We wanted to be as flexible as possible, realizing that enterprise level solutions that do all of those things run into the millions of dollars. I've come because I've used them when I was with the Hamilton Police. The City of Hamilton was using such platforms, so I can appreciate that that's not something that we're looking at here. And so the thought process, one, was to come up with an amount that was at the lower end with what the pricing we got, and that pricing that we got from companies included we can do only 10 of these, or we can do only 7 of these. And the thought process with the amount that's given to us is we will roll out the things that we would like it to have, and then basically get the best value for the most amount of features and the efficiencies and what we could bring in and streamline, not necessarily everything, because quite honestly, I'm not sure that with that amount we'll get one thing that does all of those.
But this is a costing structure for multiple systems that will be doing all of this? Is that how I understood that?
Through you, Ms. Mayor, the intention is to buy one system that does as many of these things as possible.
Thank you.
Councilor Ravitz?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I'm on page 2-37. I'm looking under facilities, under new capital initiatives, and I'm reviewing the soil remediation of Norfolk County Garage and Woodlot. We've had some work already completed in this regard. It's scheduled for $2 million for this budget, $1 million in 2020, another $1 million in 2021, and then we see the costs reduce in 2022, $700,000, and the project, I believe, would be coming to fruition on that date. My question to staff is, do we have an ability to spread this cost out over a larger time frame? Specifically, I'm thinking about having $1 million this year in 2020, 2021, 2022, and having the project come to fruition in 2023, that would allow us to realize a $1 million savings on soil remediation this year. The project will still come through to fruition, and I wanted to know if this was something we're able to do and what the impacts of such a change would be.
Through the mayor to Councillor Rabbits, sorry, I know you're going to discuss it, but I just wanted to let council know that that exact question was asked at SLT when this project came before us, and we already did do some calculations to stretch it out. Originally, that whole amount was in 2020. So we already did attempt to stretch it out a little bit, but perhaps Ms. Watson could expand on that.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Rabbits. The goal is to complete this as soon as possible so that we clean up the contamination, because right now we're holding it on Rob Blake Way. So we are hoping that we will be able to do it in a shorter time frame, but we did have the whole amount of money for 2 to 3 years. That is the expectancy of the consultant, that it can be done in that time, but we're trying to do it as fast as we can because we need to clean it up because it is in the wellhead protection area. It's not something that we want to extend or can extend.
Understood. Could you please expand on the something we can't expand? What would the ramifications be specifically, whether we're looking at the wellhead or health and safety of our public, if it were to be extended by 1 year, as I've suggested?
Through the mayor to Councillor Rabbits, we are paying operational costs to keep the system running right now at Rob Blake Way, because we did phase 1 and 2 of cleaning up the property in front of the OPP station. That was several $1 million. We did basically a dig and dump. We removed all the contaminated soil and took it off site and replaced it. The contamination is still existing on the garage property and the woodlot to the east. So we need to clean that up because the water is still moving through that area, and it will end up in the municipal wells if we don't contain it. So it is a health and safety concern that needs to be cleaned as soon as possible.
All right, thank you for that, that response. Nothing further.
Councillor Van Passen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to go back to the HR system. I've watched this for years and years and years about, we keep upgrading equipment, upgrading technology, but there's never an offsetting savings of less employees and less operating costs. You know, $400,000 so that we got the stuff that talks to itself. We don't have to use people for it anymore. I bet we're still going to use the same number of people, and we've done without it so far. Is there any chance that we can just either eliminate it, push it back a year or two until everybody's got it sorted out? Because, again, I will concede, I know nothing about it, but I've never seen a computer yet that's saved any time or money.
Mr. Shashenkov?
Through you, Ms. Mayor, I'm not sure if that there was a question really to respond to the councillor, but in general terms, and we didn't feel it was intellectually fair to presume as such, but when one attempts to buy a large or a system that does a variety of things, there should be a cost savings involved in phasing out older systems that you may be paying maintenance fees to, and other systems that you're upkeeping and keeping staff on. The other sort of thought process by which technology is rolled out is not always necessarily as a reduction of staff perspective, nor would that be something that I would have necessarily put into a capital project request. please approve this system so that we can let go 4 or 5 people. Those types of things that are usually, you roll out the system and you see what operational efficiencies you have, if you have any, and then you do restructurings along those lines. I have been part of implementations of systems where there were reallotment of FTEs because certain people didn't need to do certain manual inputs into systems. But in general terms, some of the systems that we're looking at replacing, as an example, the scheduler that's used to maintain the time banks for our paramedics department is almost 30 years old. So me coming into this organization, coming from an emergency services provider where we replaced a lot of the scheduling because we were seeing opportunities to do better, it gives me great discomfort that our paramedics area is sitting on a system that was built in the late 80s. And there's opportunities there that we were seeking to improve and to do a lot of those things better. And get data and the type of reporting that is not available to either staff or council. There was no specific question, so I kind of provided general commentary. I'm sorry if you didn't find it helpful.
Well, I can get more specific, but like maybe we should talk to the federal government about their glorious Phoenix payroll system and buy one just like that and see how far we get with it. But, you know, would you like me to put forth a motion just to move that back? Because I heard a few things about you're not sure when you were talking to the other counselors, you're not sure what this may or may not do and how it'll affect. So could we push it back to 2020 when we can get it, or the staff can get some more answers so they know exactly what it is they're getting? Or is that possible? Or is the world going to end if we don't buy the new bell and whistle to go with the computer system?
Was that a question to me?
Tell you, I would make a motion that we move it, the 400,000 human resources information system to 2020 rather than 2019, because I don't have enough comfort that everybody knows what they're getting or why they're getting it.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Okay, discussions on the motion. Sorry, Councilor Martin first.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I wonder if staff could provide information on the benefits to taking the dollar value for this software and separating it out over a few years so that we can still budget for it and demonstrate to staff that we hear them, however, really try to tighten up this year's budget.
Through the mayor to Councillor Martin. So this particular project is funded through debt. So the tax levy would not have an effect on this until, and we don't issue debt until the project is complete. So if this particular and I don't pretend to know how much time it takes to put this project in place, but let's say it takes a year, we would issue the debt in 2020, and more likely than not, the first payment would happen in 2021. I don't know what the rates will be around that time on what it would affect the levy at that time, but it will not have any direct effect on the 2019 tax levy.
Councillor Huffman?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I am not a computer guru by any way, shape, or form, but I have experienced this firsthand in a previous workplace where the systems were changed in terms of the sick benefits and pay and payroll and pay stubs and things like that were very archaic and extremely old systems. And it was quite necessary to update and maintain and keeping things up with the current. I wouldn't necessarily describe it as bells and whistles. This software, I mean, it can go, I mean, millions and millions of dollars. In terms of efficiency and knowing for an organization the size of Norfolk County and all of the different systems in terms of your volunteer firefighters and, you know, Norview staff and paramedics, et cetera, I see this as the $400,000 myself as very relevant and something that we, in terms of efficiency and safety and cyber stuff, et cetera, that we would move forward with this. Thank you.
Councillor Rabbits?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I will not be supporting moving this to another day. Variety of reasons for that. Being a professional in the field, I know what it's like when you're dealing with multiple systems, and I believe there would be a ROI that'd be very interested in seeing once we get a little deeper into the project. It's something that absolutely it saves time, your ability to generate reports, and if we are talking about replacing aging systems going back to the 80s, some of them, it's long past overdue. It sounds like it's a want and not a need, but there is going to be tangible returns on an investment of this sort. It's something that's going to benefit multiple departments. It is multidisciplinary in that regard, and it's something that I can't put off to another day in good conscience. And I just wanted to put that out there, understanding that I am someone that's a certified human resources leader in the field, and I had experience directly working with new systems. There's a steep learning curve to them as well, and you need to realize that that's an investment in your staff. And it's something that if you put it off to a later day, you're also putting off all of those returns, and you're putting off all of those training requirements to another day. They have to happen one way or another. In my mind, it doesn't make sense to be putting this off to another year. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Is there a motion, Madam Mayor, on this?
There was a motion from Councillor Van Passen to eliminate the 400,000.
Oh, yeah, I do concur with Councillor Rabbit's opinion of this.
Okay, any further discussion? So the motion, just to repeat it, that the Human Resources Information System be deferred to the 2020 capital budget. It's moved by Councillor Van Passen, seconded by Councillor Martin. All in favor? And opposed? That's defeated. Councillor Van Passen. You'd like, sorry, what? Okay, so you're putting a motion forward? And do we have a seconder? Councillor Rabbits? Discussions on the motion? Councillor Taylor?
I'd like to put an amendment in instead of delete to offset until 2020. Defer.
That's kind of not really an amendment. Can we do it? It would make sense. Councillor Van Passen, are you comfortable with that? Okay, perfect. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Martin? All in favor? Opposed? What? That was your amendment.
It passed though?
It did.
I wasn't paying attention.
Okay. Councillor Huffman.
I just want to say, sometimes you can throw an amendment in but still vote against it. People have done that. I didn't understand it at the time, but people have done that. So, not that you were intentionally doing that, but.
With no discussion as to that would be troubling. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Martin, did you want to go back to some of your items?
Thank you.
Oh,
If I can suggest, we just have a very few amount of pages left, and we also have members of the library here to go over the library, and then we'll be done all the pages, and then Councillor Martin, as well as anyone else that may have thought of something along the way, then we can sort of go back, if that's acceptable to council. Okay.
So I believe section 2D is the Norfolk County Library, and Heather King is here, and I believe you have a handout, Heather, that you would like to provide to council.
Thank you, Mayor Chop, Norfolk Council, and senior staff. The handout that you're receiving addresses the 3 items that have been requested for the 2019 capital budget. The first one being the materials, library materials, which we refer to as our collection budget. So in the handout, you'll see that there is a request for $310,000 this year, and the breakdown of how we intend to spend those finances are included for you. It's important to note that this is one of the requests that is made at the capital budget every single year, and it is required for us to be able to purchase new items for our collection, whether they be tangible as in paperbacks, magazines, newspapers, hardcover books, as well as all of our online resources. Some of the items that I have included as part of the guidelines for how this collection is built is based on our demographic profiles. So you'll notice that more money is being spent on the adult collection because Norfolk County does have more adults that are using our library system, so anyone over the age of 18, as well as kind of the prices that we pay for certain items and the number of items that are held in our collection and the benchmark that the province sets that each library collection should basically only be an age of 7 to 10 years, with the exceptions of things like things that we have in our Canadiana room that are basically dealt on Norfolk County history. So any questions, first of all, about the materials request?
Can I ask, what was approved last year?
$292,000. It's usually a 2 or 3% increase each year.
Councillor Columbus?
Yes, I was just going to, what's that go to a percentage? The 292, the 355?
310?
Yeah.
I believe this year it's 6% because we were held at 292 for the last few years. So the library board had asked to get back on track, and that's what the total is. If there are no other questions, then I'll move on to, if you want to flip that page over, you'll see that the next item is listed under your budget under security and technology for libraries. Again, this is a $20,000 placeholder each year, and each year the request is for something totally different. So last year we had to replace some of our security gates. This year we are looking at the radio frequency identification staff workstations, and there's a description there of what they are and that they have been in place since 2008, so they're at the end of their life expectancy. We have had some issues with them in the last year, which the supplier was able to provide with us some things to kind of hold them over until this year so that they could be replaced. But basically, they assist us with making our collection secure, and there's an RFID tag in every single thing that is in the library. And if it's not checked out, when you walk through the gates, there's an alarm that sounds, or we were able to track items that have an RFID tag in them as well. You'll see some of the other benefits there of why this system has been very beneficial to us over the last 10 years. And the cost of one RFID workstation is approximately $1,200. So we're, unfortunately, because we bought them all at the same time, we're replacing them all at the same time. So it would take the full $20,000 to be able to do that. Questions about that item? If not, then the last big item that we're requesting for this year is $25,000 to do a kitchen upgrade at the Simcoe branch. And you've been provided with some photos of what that current galley kitchen looks like. It's been in existence since the Simcoe branch was established in 1982. It is well used, however, it's not efficient, and that's what this budget is asking for, to be able to actually relocate the location of this galley kitchen, which is in kind of a little narrow closet right now. So if you flip over the page, what we're proposing is that we move it into the large meeting room. This meeting room has the potential to host 75 people. It is a very busy facility. It hosts lots of birthday parties, training events, workshops, that kind of thing. So the renovation costs would actually be moving the kitchen to the back side of the existing wall. So we've talked to plumbers and electricians already. It would be a fairly easy move because we wouldn't be relocating any plumbing or electrical, just kind of bringing it through that wall and then adding, if there's permits, design fees, new cupboards, counters, appliances, and kitchen equipment, and give the whole room kind of an updated look as well. Any questions about the kitchen?
Councilor
Would-
Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Would this be the room that Ms. Sinkowski's group meets in the basement, or
No,
am I
it's a larger room.
Okay.
She's in the boardroom.
Okay.
This is a
So
a
the
much larger
basement room stays for?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This is actually a question for Ms. Dusling. What are the, I guess I've seen so often, like, there's no issue with not having a commercial kitchen and so on in this kind of context, just looking at those pictures.
Thank you to the mayor. In terms of zoning, your question is correct?
I guess, yeah, just only because I've seen it pop up with other people kind of so far along the way, and I just haven't seen in Norfolk County where we've had a kind of a kitchen that's been used by the public that's been approved.
Yeah, I can double check and get back to you.
Just for clarification, this would not be a commercial kitchen. It would just be a kitchen that whoever was renting the room would be able to use. A commercial kitchen requires many more appliances, like a dishwasher, triple sink, that
I
kind
think
of
it's
thing.
great personally. I think that we should be able to still have kitchens like that. But if the library can do it, my point is just more generally that so should others be able to do it here as well. It shouldn't just be an exception for the county. So I don't have a problem with the kitchen in that way. Any further discussion? Councillor Columbus, was that a hand?
Yes. So Heather, your total capital budget request is $355,000
For 2019, yes.
for 2019, and last year it was how much? Over 28?
It would be,
2018.
maybe the Finance Committee could provide a total for that.
I thought I heard you say it was a 6% increase, but
That was just for the materials and
that's
supplies?
just for the materials, okay?
Yes.
Through the mayor, the total approved budget last year for the library was $389,000.
389,000.
89?
So you're actually asking for less than last year.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions of the forecast to 2028?
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So that concludes going through the budget document as far, that's pretty much all the line items for all the divisions and departments. I understand there are councillors that have some more motions to bring forward, so I think this is the most opportune time to do that, or any other questions that anyone might have.
Councillor Columbus, if it's okay, we'll go to Councillor Martin unless it's
Yes,
something.
a general question, okay, with respect to the capital budget. How much are we over last year's budget? What's the increase in millions of dollars? And what's the percentage rate? Is it 1.57% over 2018?
If I understand your question correctly, Councillor Columbus, I believe on page, just a minute, page 10 of your slideshow, we have a chart there, and in the box, there's a 2018 approved capital budget for and that totaled 400 million, and then this year, we're asking for another 65.2 million. However, are you asking, there's another way to ask that question. There's also what we planned for 2019 last year versus what we're actually proposing this year. I'm not sure which.
So would it not be better off to give you something like, say, take this back and knock X number of dollars off your budget from all the departments? Because you know the budget process better than we do, and we may be cutting things that are more important than some of the other things that you could cut.
That's a good question, Councillor Columbus. So through the mayor to Councillor Columbus. We've provided a budget to you based on current service levels, and we've provided another section of the budget based on current service levels plus small enhancements, and then the third section is the enhancements. And when it comes to service levels, I believe that should be a council decision, unless council directs staff to come up with options on to reduce service levels. And I'm getting into more of a CAO realm here with this kind of discussion. We've had, on the operating side, we've had similar requests in the past, and from a staff perspective, we find it slightly disruptive trying to come up with these amounts because we're already budgeting at a certain service level, and in order to cut, then we're sort of faced with, well, what service levels do we want to also cut, and I think that's more of a council decision than a staff decision.
Okay, so right now the 465,733,000 minus the 400,000 from last year, 128,000. What percentage increase is that from last year? 16%.
It's approximately 1.6% increase.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Martin?
At this point in time, I would like to put a couple motions on the floor and revisit a few of these line items. On page 2-3, when dealing with Public Works, in an effort to save $80,000 and find a potential option or provide options to council on new systems to move forward with, I would like to put a motion on the floor to approve 5 of 7, purchase 5 of 7 pickup trucks, and that Councillor Van Passen conduct a fleet review with Public Works staff and come back to council and hopefully investigate an alternate system for purchasing new trucks.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Michelli, discussions on the motion. Councillor Rabbits?
Just point of clarification, thank you, Mayor Chop, through the chair to council, Councillor Martin. I believe you had said you wanted to give direction to Councillor Van Passen, but this is direction to staff to take what Mr. Van Passen has put forward as a fleet review, and for our staff to conduct that, not necessarily giving direction to another councillor, correct?
Thank you for clarifying. What I mean by that is, yes, provide direction to staff to have a fleet review, but it is my hope that in conversations earlier, we mentioned that that would be something that Councillor Van Passen could participate in. So by no means was I trying to direct Councillor Van Passen to do that. However, just work with staff. Thanks.
So staff would be given the direction then to provide information to Councillor Van Passen outside the realm of the council meeting. Any further discussions on the motion? Councillor Taylor?
Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Van Passen?
I think I could, if staff, we want to do a little looking around at some of the equipment and what's in the old scrapyard, and if it's too rusty and I haven't used it in a long time, we can get rid of it, right? That's what my wife says about me, too.
Any further discussion? Councillor Rabbits?
Question to staff. Just want to clarify, because we're looking at a total of, there's 7, sorry. And there's a motion on the floor to cut 2 of those. And I want to make sure we're giving clear direction to staff. What 2 are we cutting? Are we cutting the ones that are furthest along in their life cycle, the ones with the highest mileage, right? Or the 2, well, they're replacing something, right? So I want to make sure that we're clear in terms of what are we not replacing, and how would our staff know, which ones they're going to cut of the 7?
I would hope that staff would replace the 2 that need to be replaced the most, whether that's age or condition, but I'll defer to Mr. Baird.
Yes, you're correct, Mayor Chop. We do the worst first, but you're approving. But keep in mind, by not replacing 3 of the 7, it's not necessarily saving money. It just means less money would be, or sorry, 2, less money would be coming out of the equipment reserve. So it's not, depending on how it's funded. Mr. Johnson might like to speak to that, but I think what your concept here is saving money, but it's also to become more efficient with fewer vehicles. I think that's really your goal here, right?
And I would say, trying to be conscious of the tax dollar, trying to evaluate the system in which we don't just put vehicles up for renewal. And yeah, I would like to see better efficiency with some vehicles being moved around, not necessarily in a replace with new.
Councillor Rabbits?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I don't want to belabor the point, but which 2 line items are we going to be removing? I'm looking at the list, and it looks like they're listed in, I would say, order of priority to be replaced, and I'm supposing that the last 2 line items, the last 2 trucks, would be the ones that are going to get scratched off this list, or is it the first 2? Like, we have line items with serial numbers, and I just want clarification from maybe staff which 2 trucks we're cutting. Because if we're to expand upon this, we'd be referring to an actual piece of equipment that would be scheduled for replacement. I just want to make sure we know what we're cutting off the budget. I'm going to scratch a couple lines out.
They're all being replaced at the same value, are they not?
They are.
So I am comfortable in Mr. Baird's ability in his department to, at the time, go back. I think it's probably hard for him to say which serial number right now is going to be cut, but to remove 2 of the trucks of the same value, I think he has that ability.
Understood.
I would suggest, just for the accounting purposes, we'll take the last 2 off, just because they're in a series. Those are project numbers, not a ID number or anything like that. So your point's well taken. That's exactly what we'll do.
Thank you very much for that clarification. That's the information I was looking to obtain. Thank you.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I'm not necessarily suggesting that I want our staff to work with less either. I am more hoping to get to the point that maybe we can keep 2 additional vehicles instead of buying 2 additional new ones for this budget. And I would hope that wouldn't accumulate to $80,000 in repairs in a single year on our fleet, just so that we can evaluate a better system and make different decisions next year. Thank you.
That's the way I understood your proposal as well. Councillor Michele?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make sure that everyone understands what I believe Councillor Martin is saying. She's just looking for the possibility of more efficiencies.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
If I may, my second issue is found on page 2-21, and it is the carpet replacement at Norview. I do understand your information that was provided did make complete sense to me. The motion I would like to put forth is to ask to not go ahead with carpet replacements of $35,000 for this year, and to ask staff to provide a report on alternate flooring options which have a longer lifespan, at which point we can decide next year if we'd like to go ahead with those replacements.
Okay, do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Michelli. Discussions on the motion? Councillor Huffman.
Again, just going back to that, I just want to clarify that report in regards to different options for flooring is something that can be done in-house and does not require anything, any consultants or any outsourced reports.
Would that be Public Works that would, or who would do that?
Mayor Chop, yes, that's correct.
So you, yeah, but it would be, they wouldn't be doing the carpet quote.
So through the mayor to Councillor Martin, I'm not specifically answering your current question on who would do it, but from your previous question, I did reach out to Mr. Nolan, the administrator at Norview, and he has provided me with some further information that I'll share with you now. He stated that when Norview was built, the flooring was chosen, and since then, where possible, other alternatives have been considered. However, the carpet is safer in most of other applications, and it is actually supported by the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care because it does reduce the risk of falls or the injury that's actually incurred on those falls. They have changed the carpeting over the years and the type that they put in, so it's not a long carpet that they replace. It's actually in portions, so if there was a spill or something that happened to an area, they can actually remove it and replace it. And it actually assists with the application because with the application, they can do it in parts. And so from even an operational perspective to maintaining the level of care that's required with the legislative requirements, it's actually easier to apply this particular carpet that they've since done.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Two questions on that. Has he provided any additional information as to what other facilities use for flooring, one, and two, we are able to change the flooring in little segments. So are we paying out $35,000 per year, or are we just budgeting for that amount in case it all needs to be used?
So through the mayor to Councillor Martin, I believe we're doing it in phases, so we are spending the $35,000. I didn't ask those questions specifically, but from being in the home and having actually observed it, they do that. What it does enable us is that if there's something damaged in the carpet, we don't have to remove the whole thing in one, like all the time. It actually increases the longevity of the carpet and when we actually need to replace it.
Sorry, any other flooring options? Were you speaking to that with when you aren't aware, if he mentioned other facilities, what they use?
So through the mayor, I'm not sure. I guess, I can't answer that specifically. What I do know is that there's very rigid legislative requirements through the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, and I'm sure that through facilities and with Mr. Nolan that those things have likely been explored further.
Thank you.
Councillor Huffman.
After just kind of processing and further consideration, I would not be able to support that motion. Looking at a portion of our most vulnerable citizens and their health and wellness, and in terms of trips and falls and things like that, and in terms of some of the other harder services that we haven't been able to make any cuts from, not prepared to support a cut to health and wellness of our elderly population.
Councillor Michelli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too have to say that now that we've had the information from Ms. Miranda, that the flooring surface is actually an appropriate surface for health and safety, I think my suggestion is that we would have to defeat this motion and leave it in.
Councillor Columbus?
I concur with the two speakers previous, now that Ms. Miranda's spoken, because this carpeting that we're putting in is for, you see it in institutional uses where you can take a piece, if there's a piece damaged, you can just piece it. Whereas if we're looking at a different material completely, I would think you'd have to change the whole room to accommodate that. I can't support the motion.
Councillor Martin?
I too would say that additional information was helpful, and I wonder if it's in order for me to just amend.
I think we still have to, well, technically, I think we still have to vote on it because the motion's come forward and it's had a seconder, so we can, okay, so all in favor? Okay, it's been defeated.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Martin, I think still has the floor.
I'm not sure if it would be appropriate right now to just ask for that additional flooring from other municipalities just to come as a memo to council to review at a later date.
So through the mayor to Councillor Martin, I can definitely ask Mr. Nolan to work with facilities and inquire about that. And he sits actually on a regional committee with his colleagues across southwestern Ontario, and I'm sure he could inquire about that, and we can provide a memo of information to you at a later date.
Thank you. Okay, this is my final motion that I would like to put forward. It can be found on page 2-22, and it is the envelope upgrades to the Simcoe Rec Center. I would like to put forth a motion to remove the $100,000 line from the budget until council has further time to become updated and make decisions on the community hub. As in progress and timelines and...
Sorry, Councillor Martin, which page again?
2-22.
So a seconder first. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Michelle, and discussions on the motion, Councillor Columbus.
I'd like to ask staff, Mr. Cridlin, what the repercussions would be to have that removed. Is there like something to do with leakage or more damage, or is it cosmetic? Could you just share with us your thoughts on that, Mr. Cridlin?
Through the chair to Councillor Columbus. I know council is looking for cutting. I've reviewed the report today, and it's something that is recommended. It is a 1 to 3 year recommendation. So if it helps council, I'm sure staff can look at this and find some operating money to knock off the must-do stuff in the coming year. I wasn't sure. I didn't hear whether this budget was cut or just deferred. I'm hoping it's deferred to next year, because if we do carry on year from year, this is obviously going to become more important to get this work done. So if it's a deferral, I'm sure staff can work in getting some of the worst done, and with that, if that helps council in their decision making today.
That would be fine with me to move to 2020.
My one concern with this is, as we've talked, I know one of the ideas we've tossed around is moving the seniors center and starting to occupy some of the space at the rec center. And I'm wondering, I don't want to see us move them out of the senior center and then the rec center kind of falls behind on a repair schedule.
To the mayor's comment, looking at Nikki, and we both have the same belief that with 500 plus members there, if there was talk about ever moving the seniors to the rec center, it would have to be in the event of a real emergency. There's just not the space or the needs that those folks need there. Plus existing program and the pool use. The building is as busy as it is.
Okay. Councillor Taylor.
Although we did all support the hub, and not all of us, but we did support the hub in our campaigns, I think eliminating these upgrades from the rec center is hedging quite the bet that the hub does go through. And as Mr. Cridland said previously, we're looking 6, 7, 8 years down the road for this, but in the interim, we need facilities.
Councillor Martin?
If I may just clarify, I am okay with moving it over to 2020, and these are exterior fixes such as window and stucco that Mr. Quinlan had mentioned earlier. So it's not that I don't want to support and continue to invest in our current infrastructure. I just really would like for council and the rec committee to be able to meet and have discussions before we put money without a plan. Thank you.
Councillor Rabbits?
Thank you, Mayor Chop. I also will not be supporting even moving it to 2020. I do realize we need to have current facilities before we build a new facility, if we are building a new facility, and we need to update these facilities in the interim, as Councillor Taylor had indicated. And I know it may seem like it's just windows and facade, but it is going to maintain the value of that property. It's going to provide a space for recreation and leisure while we get our ducks in a row for this multi-use, multi-generational complex. So, I want to make sure that we're not dispossessing ourselves of such an amenity before we have something to replace it with.
Any further discussion? Councillor Van Passen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I went through it, we got 2019 rec center building upgrades, 100,000, 220 for 2020. There's another 460,000 in there, a couple lines down. 2020, there's a washroom for 20,000. 2021, the change room for 35,000. The list goes on. Moving the 100, there's already 460 in 2020 budget now, so now it's going to be 560 in 2020. If it needs that much work, it'll get done all at once, right? Unless I'm misreading the lines on page 222.
Sorry, what was your suggestion there at the end? I didn't.
Well, that there is no problem with if it's a building envelope upgrades for 100,000, so we'll do $560,000 worth of work in 2020 instead of 460 and 100, right?
Councillor
Not like
Huffman?
the building's going to fall down.
I think that makes perfect sense, that we just move it all into to the one large piece in terms of 2020. There's a few things on here in terms of our recreational facilities that I'm unclear as to really why they're on here for such a large amount of money. But I guess that's a discussion for another day. But I think putting it all into 560 would probably be more cost efficient anyways.
Just one comment there. I think it would have been a great discussion for today, actually. Fantastic.
Well, I'm unclear. I just, and I went back to it because I already had asked through you, Mayor, to Bill Cridland. I'm unclear as to why this $500,000 for the seating at Talbot Arena is on here, and why there's $1 million point something for the floor and the boards at Talbot and stuff. I don't understand. I do understand that we will need to have recreational facilities in place during the period of time. I do hope that Councillor Taylor's estimate of 6, 7, 8 years was very overgenerous. And I think in terms of cost-saving measures, it's happened in other centers in Norfolk County when different facilities have not been available, that they have utilized other arenas or ball diamonds or things like that. I know we don't have any other indoor pools, but I just think I'm just really not comfortable with the large amount of actually several $1 million being in this budget when we haven't even had an opportunity yet in terms of the rec advisory group to sit down, to talk, and to get some plans in place. So to me, I'd like to see it all deferred, personally, to 2020.
Well, you're welcome to step back up with some line items. So let's vote on this particular motion unless there's further discussion, and then we'll step over to some other items if you'd like. So all in favor?